Welcome to Kev's Travel Stories. Each week I'll be bringing you a story from the weird and wonderful world of travel, a world that can change the way you see life and love and even the way we find meaning. Places that are iconic and sometimes surprising and even terrifying. So sit back and enjoy while we go on a magical mystery tour together. Welcome to Kevin's Travel Stories, and this week we're looking at something that can happen on holidays which could have lethal effects. Yes, we're talking about dangerous incidents. Travel to faraway places is not entirely without its risks. When I discovered personally on a visit to Australia not that long ago. Yes, two things happened which could actually, in retrospect, have led to me losing my life. So I'm sharing this, dear listener, as a sort of a cautionary tale, because Australia is so far away. I've done a separate podcast on it, which you can check into, about is Australia worth actually visiting? There is some controversy over that, particularly how far away it is. One of the advantages of it being so far away is it has some of the legendary, dangerous animals that are on the planet. I'm talking about the great white shark. I'm talking about the absolutely venomous black scorpion. And I'm talking about a close encounter with one of the most dangerous, the second most dangerous snake on the planet. Yes, Australia is home to about 66 venomous species. You've got snakes, but you've also spiders, marine creatures, some pretty nasty jellyfish that will have you dead in the water fairly quick. But of course, venomous doesn't always mean deadly, and some of the most dangerous, brown snake for example, don't want to mingle with human beings. The incidents of attack only happen usually when someone actually steps in them, which is just about what I did. How many people die from these sorts of incidents in Australia? Well, about 32 people die a year from accidents involving wildlife of some sort or another. Many of these are actually horses, because such an amount of people use horses. So it sort of rather skews the number a bit, really, doesn't it? The deaths from sharks, snakes, marine creatures is actually in single digits each year. So not really a Jaws type phenomenon. Like, for example, between 1791 and 2018, there were 1,068 shark attacks on humans in Australia, of which 237 were fatal. But the box jellyfish, which is in the sea, one of even more dangerous than great white sharks, caused at least 69 deaths since 1883, when records were first kept. So, as you can see, you have to be on your guard. And my encounter with the brown snake was in such boring, everyday circumstances. I was staying with my friend Alan Bruton. We'd visited Australia, and we were staying in Cairns, a beautiful part of the world, quite a hippie, hip area, lots of backpackers, and we were staying in a nice resort hotel. And I was very much into running at the time. And I remember one night, you couldn't run in the day, but there was this sort of forest behind the hotel, which of course in Australia, as soon as you get off the beaten track, you're into sort of rugged wild forest. I put on my running shoes, did a workout in the gym and thought, I'll just take a run now. It's nice and cool. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening. So off I ran. Nobody around. Down into this little forest area. It had, I remember, a sort of an asphalt track that was running through the middle, and I stuck to this, and it was quite good to run, actually, and I ran, I suppose, for about 20 minutes. Dusk was coming, if you can imagine. You can feel the prickles of sweat on my brow. You can feel the warmth in the air, 25, 30 degrees. You can hear the kookaburra. You can hear the wildlife as the evening chorus goes into full effect. Oh, how wonderful, wonderful that was to hear all of this extreme wonder and beauty. But then what happened was, as I was running along, minding my own business, I just caught out of the corner of my eye a brown snake lying directly into my path. Now, I was running so quick, and I was a quick runner. And as some of you will know from my other podcasts, I was also a ballet dancer. So instinctively, without even thinking, I launched myself in the air, high, and did a sort of a Nijinsky leap over this brown snake. It was quite a big snake. It was lying right across the path. And as I later discovered, this brown snake was the snake that is the second most deadly snake in the world. I kid you not. And there was no doubt that this was exactly where they habitat. This is the time they come out, and he was waiting there, minding his own business, as was I. And if it wasn't for this instinctive, sudden leap, otherwise, if I'd have been bitten, but I looked up what would have happened if I'd been bitten by this brown snake. Let's say if I'd have trodden on it and it had got its fangs into me. Well, within minutes, I'd have felt the first signs, a metallic taste in the mouth, sweating and dizziness, and a strange numbness creeping up the limbs. Now stay with me, listener, and just feel what it would have been like. So I didn't make this leap. I hadn't done ballet. Ballet saved my life, I would say. Instead, I'm crippling along now. The snake's bitten me. It's run off into the undergrowth. And I'm walking along, trying to get back to the hotel and Al and get some help. But the venom of the brown snake is the most potent on earth. A cocktail of neurotoxins and coagulants that paralyze the muscles and shut down the blood's ability to clot. So, within a few moments, I would start to internally bleed, and my nervous system would start failing. My heart would be slowing, and my breathing would be weakened, and I would be dead. Yes, dear listener, within half an hour, maybe sooner, if it had hit the artery or a main vein. So, that is the first incident. And what did I learn from that? Well, for God's sake, if you're in a place like Australia where life and death can be in your shoe, there have been situations, and we used to check this, because deadly scorpions like a shoe because it's nice and cozy and it sort of fits their lifestyle. And of course, you get up in the morning, you put your foot into the boot. He has no choice but to sting you, and a sorry tale would also unfold. My second encounter was something that was really a bit criminal and could have been avoided and actually should not happen at all. Alan said, we're going to go scuba diving. We're near the barrier reef. I thought, well, I can hardly schlep it all the way down to Australia without going onto the Great Barrier Reef and having a dive. Now, I thought it would be like a scuba dive. I had no idea about diving. I'd never put on any gear. I had no idea what scuba diving involved. So I was in for it. I put up my hand and volunteered. Now, the first thing, I should have known this was going to go wrong. The first thing was, we got on this boat with lots of other tourists. You could tell they were all a bit nervous. You could tell we were all in the same boat. We were sort of day trip adventurers trying to sort of have something to tell people when they got back home. I went on the Great Barrier Reef, saw the white sharks, dived, and bit James Bond. Well, it took 2.5 hours. Oh, dear listener, I was so seasick. So was Alan. We got so seasick. I thought the journey would never, ever end. I was sick over the side. I was retching. Anyway, finally, we arrived. We were given half an hour to recover. And then we were told, okay, are you going to dive? I said, well, I haven't come all the way here. And I sort of started feeling sort of semi-human at this stage. Well, things were quite incredible. They gave me this list to sign my life away, saying if I died, that's my bad luck. They gave us half an hour of sort of instruction on how to put on the... Now, when you're scuba diving is an extreme sport. People die scuba diving because you're in a very, very dangerous environment if you panic, which is what happened to me. I'm just giving you a nods off before I get into it. Or if your equipment malfunctions and you don't have any backup skills. It's like taking a baby, taking him to the top of the mountain, strapping on some skis and saying, good luck, there you go, make it to the bottom 5 miles away. It's not going to happen. It's going to be an unhappy ending. Well, we put on the gear, still feeling a bit nauseous, and there were some hardy divers there. You could see them, they're all sort of brown-skinned and muscly, and there was a couple of Marines from America, so they disappeared off. Well, all I remember, there was this absolutely drop-dead gorgeous girl who was our instructor. Now, she was actually very good. Jenny, I think her name was. If it wasn't for her, I'm not sure I'd still be around. We put on the gear, and of course by then, because everybody's getting in the water and you don't want to look like an idiot, you get in. I'm now an advanced diver with my son Kieran. We've done lots of diving around the world, and it takes 2 weeks to do a PADI course in controlled environments when you know what happens if your equipment malfunctions. You take off your mask, you take out your respirator, you take off your backpack with the aqualung on it, as part of the safety conditions, part of your training. And if you can't do that, you can't be qualified to go diving. It's as simple as that, and it takes a week. It's like driving a car. I mean, this was the equivalent of giving someone a Ferrari, pointing them down the school run with kids coming out of school and saying, off you go, don't worry, I haven't shown you how to brake, but you won't need to. Crazy stuff. So we got into the water. Now, I'm claustrophobic, as you know from my other podcasts, and I'm quite stubborn, but I'm a bit tentative. And I see this in Cuba as well, my grandson, a little bit tentative and a little bit on the cautious side. And I do have claustrophobia. So when we got into the water, I was breathing like this. Now, of course, that's going to use up the air supply in double quick time. And Jenny came over, tapped me on the shoulder. She did all the things about calming down and staying mindful. But of course, it's quite easy to say that. It's quite another thing to do it. And I can remember after 5 minutes, I couldn't crack it anymore. We were starting to go down. I was getting pains in my ears. And I said to go up. I have to go up. I have to go up. And she looked me and she held me by the shoulders. I'm not sure if this is even a good thing to do. And she just said, calm, calm. Now, she was mouthing this because you can't speak with a breather in your mouth and the goggles on. And I stayed with it, and the incident passed. And I got over it and then kept on diving. We only stayed in about 8 to 9 meters. All I can tell you, dear listener, is it was like Nemo Pixar on speed. It was incredible. The colours of the fish, the colours of the reef, the way the reef changed colour, the way fish, when they came in contact with the reef, went from purple to green to orange. I have never seen anything like it. It was incredible. And we saw a shark. It was a white-tipped shark. It was about 4 foot long, not interested in us whatsoever. It was a miracle. And I got up and got out, and I was still feeling a bit sick, but we had a little drink and we tried to eat something, and that was that. But I sort of promised myself that if I ever went back to scuba diving, I'd learn properly. And that is what I did. And I think there's a podcast about how to do it. And if not, I'm going to do one, because there is a way to learn how to. And once you can do scuba diving, it's fantastic. And I've dived on some of the great sites around the world. But that was 2 awful incidents. And of course, now it's really regarded as not allowed. You should be certified, and you should use all of the skills you learn when you go on a proper PADI course. How to check your gear, how to deal with adverse conditions. Like I've done night dives, I've done deep dives, I've done wreck dives, I've done drift dives. Sharm el Sheikh, I did a podcast on that. But it just goes to show, and the great tragedy is that the barrier reef, that was a few years ago. Coral bleaching, rising sea temperatures, acidification, pollution. There's now widespread bleaching, freshwater runoff damage. Oh my goodness me, it's a tragedy. I suppose one thing I could say is that at least I have done it. And I would just leave you with 2 things. If you go to Australia, just be careful of the wildlife. you're more dangerous to them than they are to you for the most part. We're destroying their habitats. But just do be careful. Don't go running anywhere on your own. And certainly if you're going to go diving, do a recognised course.